find them. I don't want you to freak out. I thought about doing it in the voice, but I was like, no. I don't want you to freak out. Whoa.
It's a good impression. The hard ones or the soft like sugary ones?
No, the hard ones.
Yeah.
No. So
it's Monday, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome, one and all, to the Metal Lab. I am none other than the Macho Man, Jason Call. I can't hold. My voice is already right.
No, you should. Yeah, you don't have any voice left.
I can't see myself on the screen. It was all terrible. And
I think you should have done the intro exactly like that and stopped exactly like that. It was perfect.
I got to save that for wrestling, for when the wrestling clicks actually come out. Metal Lab, it's Monday, guys. I wanted to have a fun. I miss the old silly intros, so why not get back in that, right?
I didn't even know we were live. We're talking about maple candy. Now I really want to know
what
that.
You guys were talking all the way.
Oh my god, we're live. See, I was like, you should do that live. Oh my god, we're live. What? And I do love maple candies.
Yeah, only the most awesome of intros. When I have everybody on staff, finally, it's Mr. Tom Kerr.
Hello, everyone.
Wearing the sweater collar combo. Look at him looking sharp. Got his adult bev. I've also got to crack myself open. An adult bev. Mr. Mike White.
Hello.
And Jack.
I've got Yoda. Hey.
Yeah, I'm also here, I guess.
Yeah, rock the Yoda.
Yoda man, Mike.
Yes.
Sorry. Handle the puns you cannot.
No. Not once you hear again.
All right. It's been a while since we've had everybody, and it's a good time to get back into the flow of things. How's everybody's week in HeroClix been? I know some of us are going to have some short weeks, some of us not so much, but Tom, what's up, bud?
Pretty short week. The only HeroClix I really got to play at all was I played a couple practice games on Roll20 with Emily, which was fun, as it always is. And I got a chance to play last Friday in the online Rock Win a Map event, which was a lot of fun. I did get knocked out first round, but I got knocked out by PJ, and you can do worse than getting knocked out by PJ. And it was a good learning experience. I'd never really piloted that particular team before, and I made some stupid moves that I wouldn't do in retrospect. And ultimately, that's what you play for. I mean, I don't really think of the Rock Online thing as being. I mean, it's all fine and important and whatnot, but I like it as an opportunity to try to stress test ideas. And so, anytime that you can learn is a good time. And I had a lot of fun playing the game. So, yeah, I'm feeling good. But I wish I was playing more HeroClix.
All right, Mike.
Well, up until Friday, I've been slogging away on the show that I'm working on, which is, of course, why I haven't been here. So there's been not much HeroClix, some Sunday HeroClix. Yesterday there was a game. It was really more of a casual build thing, so it was just throwing together some figures. I mostly played a bunch of EarthX stuff, Sinister Syndicate stuff, just to try it out and have fun with it. It was some good dice and bad dice, and I'll be honest, my head wasn't quite in it. Just a quick shout out to Mother's Day and all the moms out there. I lost my mom a month ago, so it was a little tough for me that day. So I wasn't in the click state of mind that I should have been. But today I did a lot of practicing with Emily in person, and Emily's really got a lot of good teams that she can play. Everybody knows that she's rocking the Vulture team. She's had a lot of stuff in the past that she's played before. She's been tooling around with some new stuff too, and I'm pretty sure, I think she says she's going to Michigan. So watch out, Michigan. You have no idea what Emily might pull out of the bag for that. We had some back and forth games today. I think she won more than I did. I think it was like a 3-2 kind of end result there, but it was a lot of fun. I'm glad we got the games in today and my head was back in the game the right way. It's great when you can practice with a friend and you it doesn't matter as much to you, and it can go either way. And I think it's a great way to play and get yourself back having fun as well as being competitive. But that was pretty much it. and here I am talking about clicks. So that's also part of my week in clicks. Hey.
Hey.
And everybody's here, so that's
I
a good
know.
thing.
I love it. Jay, what about you, bud?
Next to none. I played at that same event yesterday. It was basically low point street level. You could either do only characters up to 75 points, or you could do. I was the only one that did this, but I described it as you couldn't play anybody over like peak human, so like nobody more powerful than like I don't know Batman or Captain America sort of thing. Just because I wanted to play Shield human level characters that were more than 75 points. I basically played Shield directors, which was fun. I played the recent awesome movie Rare Coulson, who I played before, and he continues to impress. I played the Nick Fury, also the Rare. For the Winter Soldier set, I played Captain America Common, who's one of my favorite versions and has the cool your opponent doesn't get initiative bonus trait. But unfortunately, due to the scenario, I didn't have the sideline to Caps with Mjolnir, which would have been fun. And some other Shield stuff, basically. And I played a couple games, and I had fun. Fun was had. And I lost to Glenn's weird mashup of Arkham Asylum, but broken themes that include some fun stuff like Calculator and Lady Shiva for the 12 attack sharing. So that was a bit silly. With the across the map 13 attack, super old Arkham Asylum inmates from the Dark Knight Rises movie set from 2012.
Yikes.
That was fun.
Cool. I managed to at least get one game in of HeroClix, which was actually on camera for the Married Lab, which was focusing on this kind of stuff, note-taking, and best ways to do it in the game. I think I kind of come up with a decent enough system, so my last week, we're going to do a little bit of channel management here. Last week was supposed to be an episode of Into the Mind of Madness. Unfortunately, Ring of Honor was in town, and I had a lot of live wrestling to go watch, hence my voice. So as a result, we did a second episode of Married Lab, which was fine. We got to try out, see what note taking kind of looked like in the realm of HeroClix, which it looks like it's a neat addition and doesn't do much damage to the way the game plays or the pacing of the game. I'm going to spend this week talking about or teaching people some of the best practices for that.
Suffering fuckatash.
I just rolled with it. I felt it happen. I was like, let's just go with it. It's a despicable practice, I tell you.
You're despicable.
But yeah, so you can watch that game on the Married Lab, which was this past Friday, and I'm looking to get a little bit more practice in soon because soon I'm sure we'll see an announcement for Canadian Nationals, and it might be good to start getting together some archetypes that I might be actually able to play, considering somebody exists and keeps ruining the one I like to play. That aside, with everybody here, before we get started, I want to take a second to let Mike have the floor. Mike, yo mama, share the floor. The floor is yours, sir.
Oh, I just wanted to give a shout out, like I mentioned before. My mom passed away suddenly a month ago. She was a real big supporter of all the things that I do, and she was a big supporter of me playing games and being creative and superheroes and comic books. So I know there are other people out there too who have lost their moms. PJ, another awesome player, and he lost his mom, and this is a tough day for him too. And he really reached out at this time. Over that, and there were a lot of other players who reached out at this time with the things I was going to. So it was a combination of I just wanted to give a shout out to the community and how much love they give to other people when they're going through things. I think this game is more than just a game. It's about the friendships we make, respecting other players, and there were a lot of really kind words that were sent by people. And just dedicating tonight's episode, conveniently enough with everybody here, to all the moms out there. Moms here, moms not here, dads who play the part of moms, moms who play HeroClix themselves, all of that. They're all part of our lives, and we wouldn't be here without them. And look how great it is that all of us are here getting to play this game and talk about this stuff. So much love to moms, and much love to my mom up there. I miss you.
Raise a
Indeed.
glass to Mike and
To the moms.
To the moms.
Moms.
Hey, Mom, where's the meatloaf?
Well said, bro. Well said.
All right. With that as it was, let's move to the previews, guys. It's time, courtesy of Da Vinci's DreamWorks and Eternal Games. We've had a few previews to look over. So let's go to that screen and let's get that preview monitor up. Actually, let's get to this proper one. There we go, where I got the proper pictures and everything going. We're going to start with the AIM Blue Squad. This has got AIM Avengers, Hydra, Politician, and Scientist keywords. It's got a trait, Administration and Research Division. Leadership, if AIM Blue Squad is part of a named theme team, friendly characters with the AIM keyword consider other friendly characters in 3 squares and line of fire to be adjacent when using Enhancement, Empower, Leadership, or Support. And then it's a what you see is what you get dial. For 40 points, you get 4 clicks of Sidestep, 3 late clicks of Psychic Blast, 1 click with Mastermind on the top with some late dial Barrier, and then you start with Prob, which goes to Leadership, Empower. Tom, what do you think of the AIM Blue Squad?
I like them. I think that there's absolutely nothing you can complain about for 40 points. And I love, Prob, Leadership is a great combination. Plenty of good name keywords that you can throw this onto, although it doesn't have to be on a theme team. You just get a little bit of extra bonus if you do. I like particularly the support within 3 bit. I mean, we've seen variations of the Enhancement and Power within 3 thing, and it's kind of like having a limited version of Perplex anyway. The Leadership is great. And the support I particularly think is neat because it makes for a good little bit of extra thing. Although I'm trying to figure out, wait, does he have support?
No.
No. So how does that work?
Well,
But there
AIM
clearly
keyword
going to be
characters.
there's going to be other AIM keyword characters that are going to come out
see.
with support.
Okay. Okay. I'm a little less impressed. But okay,
Yeah.
fair enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, what can I say? I think it's fine for 40 points. I'm not super excited for it, but I mean, it's got 3 damage, it's got a little bit of range, it's got sidestep, it's got leadership and prob.
All right, Mike, is that your loud? Who's like at the loud?
Yeah. Well, funnily enough, my cat died 2 months ago.
Oh my god.
And the other cat was bonded to that cat, so she has been pining for him for a while. So I'm sorry. There's been a lot of death in my house. It's been a tough go. Anyway, I really like this figure. I think it's great. Clearly, we're going to get some other AIM characters in this set that won't be Blue Squad. They'll probably be lower points and more generic, and I would almost guarantee that one's going to have support. On top of that, with this coming from the whole U.S. Avengers thing, where Roberto da Costa bought out AIM and was turning it into like a good guy squad, one of those lower point AIM guys with support could also have Avengers keyword. I think that this figure, plus some lower points, plus a whole bunch of giant girls, becomes a really gross mess with this 3 range support, enhancement, empower, yada yada, shmata shmata. Wow. I don't think Avengers needed help. I think this figure is great and ridiculously exploitable. And on top of that, just Politician and Scientist to have a figure on a theme team like that, which doesn't get theme prob. This guy does have prob. Prob is always helpful, man. Oh my God, Dice. We've all been there. So I think it's a figure where we have to see more coming from the set to really see the true value. But I think immediately there's a lot going on with a traded leadership, and his leadership himself works 3 away from other people. So they don't have to have AIM for it to work. It's that he's letting other people with AIM also get to do that. But an Avenger who's 3 away from him, he rolls leadership, he can take a token off of them. So I think it's great. And good thing it's a rare, or else I could see me having a whole bunch of them.
Yeah.
Because why not? 40 points. I mean, come on. Again, with 10-point giant girls all over the place, you can heal. Gross.
All right, Jay?
It could be good depending on what else we get, but with just this one, it's hard to tell how much of an impact there'll be, but I mean, obviously the intent seems to be there, but it does kind of remain to be seen, but hopefully.
I'm getting a good chuckle. A lot of what I want to say has already been said, so I'm not going to repeat it. But I do love how the cat kind of says he's going, "Rah, rah, rah, rah."
You think it's funny, but at 3 a.m. it is not so funny.
No, I bet not. I bet
It is
not.
not.
All right. Moving on. Next up, we have Namor. Atlantis, Avengers, Cabal, Illuminati, Invaders, Ruler, and Warrior keywords. He is the bearer of power and time gems as his trait. For plus 5 points, Namor starts the game with either the power gem or the time gem. What do those do? Oh, wait. The first, he's got the rule as the world burns trait, which a couple figures have. When an opposing character rolls for leadership and the result is 1 or 2, remove an action token from Namor. I like this kind of a, you're going to rule your leadership, I might be able to capitalize on it effect. I like it. He's got a special movement power, which he only has on his 110-point dial. Charge Flurry, but only if he has the time... Sorry, Charge, period. Flurry, but only if he has the time gem equipped. Then he's got a special damage power on his last 4 clicks, or all 4 clicks of the 75-point dial. My Fury is as the Tempest Unleashed. Battle Fury, when Namor attacks with the power gem equipped and targets only characters with printed range values of 5 or more, modifies damage plus 1, and the damage dealt is penetrating. Mike, what do you think of Namor?
I'm wondering what's up at WizKids that they've just got like a thing for Namor lately. Like we've got
a few.
Right, we've got a whole bunch of Namors to begin with. On top of that, they've given us a lot of really interesting different versions of Namor that play in very unique ways. I don't know so much about the 110-point one, but yeah, for sure I would want to play him at 75 points with the power gem on. That whole taking tokens off of him when your opponent rolls a 1 or a 2 is pretty great. Battle Fury is helpful in a realm where people are often picking up the Remaker Ring or the Symbiote to get some shape change, so you could ignore that. A lot of figures out there that are being played in the meta who have a range of more than 5 or more, so now he's getting a +1 to damage and it's penetrating. Yeah, and that's 75 points. Plus he fits into a whole bunch of great themes. Avengers is a great theme, as we've already mentioned. Ruler has a lot of interesting things going on right now with the Surtur Colossal Retaliator. Wow. There's like, why do they like Namor so much, really? And he's a rare, too, so at least you're not hunting down a chase or a super rare. Like, hooray, everybody, enjoy your Namor.
Yeah. Jay?
I don't think I see it for constructed, and I want to say for sure play it in sealed, but we still have that weird unknown going on of how
do you get the gems?
How the gems really work.
Yeah, because the thing is, all of the stones or gems we've seen so far are rare, so maybe he comes with one or the other, but then like he's not going to come with both, so it really depends.
Okay.
I mean, he is your rare, so you probably would have to play him. I don't know. We've seen a little set, but like, I don't know. In sealed without a gem, I'd be a little hesitant to play him at either value because it feels a little weak. But with one of the gems in sealed, for sure.
All right, Tom.
I'm really on the fence. I have to be honest. I want to like him more than I instinctually do. I want to look at his 17 defenses and see them as 18s because I assume that he's getting +1 when he's in the water, but he's not because he's not so swimmily inclined. There's no doubt in my mind that for 35 points, getting 3 extra clicks with front-loaded Invincible and the selective charge flurry, I think is a worthwhile investment of 35 points. But then I feel like I'm, at 115 points with the gem on. I don't know that he's entirely worth it. But then if that's true, then how could he be worth it at 80 points for 4 clicks? I don't know. I'm struggling. I'm struggling a little bit with the fact that he seems very, very outwit and one-shottable at his lower value. But I do love the fact that, as Mike said, he's got the Battle Fury with as long as he's got the power gem on, then he's getting a +1 damage. He's already got super strength, and there's a chance that under certain circumstances he might get another bonus bit of damage, or it turns into penetrating. So like he's a damage dealing machine at that point that you just can't ignore. But if you can't ignore him, you can take him out fairly quickly. Because he's just not defensively inclined, and then I'm wishing he had prob to protect himself. But if he's got the time gem on, then he doesn't have the power gem. So I'm really having an identity crisis where it relates to Namor here. So I have to say I'm a fence sitter.
All right. I also want to point out one more added thing about this rule as the world burns trait. This isn't the only figure that has it. There's gonna be multiples with it. Think about how many times you just roll leadership for the sake of keeping up with it. Now you got to look at it and go, I don't need to roll it, so I'm not going to roll it. I am not taking the action token off of that guy. It's a scary world if one of these characters with the rule as the world burns trait becomes like super competitive. Gets scary. It gets to be scary. The status quo is getting messed up in this year, and I love it. I love it a lot. All right, next up.
Those attack values.
Yeah. Starbrand. So it looks like the chases for this one are kind of going the other half of what we got from what's the
Battleworld.
Battleworld. So where Battleworld had like some alternate Avengers while also containing some of the million BC Avengers. We got the same thing going on here where some of them are one way and others are another way. And this is Starbrand.
With good idea.
With the Avengers, Cosmic, and Past keyword. Starbrand chooses a new wielder is his first trait. When Starbrand is KO'd, after resolutions, roll a d6 for each character friendly and opposing within 6 squares of the square he last occupied. The character with the highest result modifies his combat values +1 this game. Re-roll the highest ties until one character has the highest result. This power is protected pulse wave. Then he's got before interstellar travel, Starbrand and friendly characters within 3 squares can't be attacked by opposing characters using hypersonic speed. Then his third trait is Ancient Incarnation Starbrand. When another friendly character named Starbrand hits, after resolutions, remove an action token from this character because there's a lot of characters with Starbrand.
It's the least likely trait to ever trigger in the history of HeroClix.
He has 140 points. He flies. He's got power cosmic, and so what you see is what you get. Dial. Jay, what do you think of Starbrand?
It's a hard sell for a couple reasons. Having the impervious top dial and then invincible later just feels like, I don't know, like why?
Wow.
It's so easy to get penetrating damage now. It just hurts to see that on the top dial of a high point character like this. The anti-hypersonic speed trait is cool. I'm basically just looking at it for sealed because I just don't see it for constructed. It might be useful. It's Starbrand thing's never going to happen, although he isn't unique. So if you pull 2 of him in sealed, that could be something.
Now you're thinking with portals.
If you pulled 2 chases and seals,
Right?
Yeah,
Could happen.
your name would have to be Kyle to do something.
I was just going to say that. I was just going to say it had to be
Kyle
Kyle.
Gilmore, the challenge is on you.
Right? Now that we've put that out in the air, you know what's going to happen.
He's going to
Yeah.
do it.
I just want to
If anyone will.
But the thing is, if you don't if you just look at him and just completely ignore the first trait, and then you just look at the hypersonic trait and the Starbrand trait, it's like, okay, this is fine. And then you look at the trait that says that when he dies, your opponent might get a figure with +1s, and I'm just not seeing that possibility detracting from the cost at all.
Right.
So yeah, I don't want to be losing, and then opposing character got +1 to everything. This is not a good time for me right now. So it's a chase, good values, sealed, sure, constructed, never. I don't see this happening unless there's just somehow a really good Starbrand, which is never going to happen.
Tom?
Yeah, I have to agree, and I don't want to be all negative. I feel like I've been a bit negative recently with new previews and things. Elitist. Oh, I can't see this in the competitive game. But, I mean, I really can't. Like, 140 points with no range, and Jay pretty much covered everything else. The biggest sad point about this character for me is less whether or not I think he's useful, but more that there's a massive wall of text for his traits, none of which really engage me particularly. Like I said, it's cool to see if he dies and gives somebody else +1 combat values on your team. It's less cool if it's somebody on the other team. That one kind of bounces out to a neutral. And then you've got it's the type of thing that you want to surround him by low point characters, but he's taking up such a huge portion of your force anyway that that's hard to do. And then you've got the whole not being able to attack by hypersonic speed. It doesn't feel like hypersonic speed is that huge a thing at the moment as far as the people who are dealing the damage is concerned. Maybe that'll change. Maybe there'll be something we haven't seen yet in the set that's going to make hypersonic just like the beast knees and catch pajamas again. And if so, then maybe he'll be more useful, but seems unlikely. And without that, I just don't think there's enough to carry it.
All right, Mike. Any other thoughts?
I would be excited to pull him in two scenarios. One of which would be in a pre-release while the prices are still high in the secondary market for chase figures, so that I could sell him immediately.
Right.
Secondly, would be in an early sealed event before anybody figured out that he is junk and was willing to trade chase for chase, and would trade me their much better meta chase for this hunk of junk. He's a big beat stick who, wow, you can't outwit him, but who cares? I'll just Psychic Blast him or whatever. And 140 points of, whatever. Mm-hmm. It's just like a trick. It's like a trick of the mirrors. You're like, oh my God, look at this guy. And, oh, doesn't that trait sound cool? And oh yeah, no.
Yeah.
And now, Mike, because of what you just said and the fact that people watch this show, you completely ruined your chance of a chase.
Oh, I know.
This guy.
That's okay. Which is totally fine.
This is the chase that I'm most likely to pull, certainly. So there's that about it.
Kind of like Devastator for me. I pulled a Devastator from Rebirth.
Me too.
Whoa.
Good thing Jay wants it. It's all for you, Jay.
I got a Venom Spider-Man for
No, wait, I was merciless. Wait, you scammed me.
I thought you wanted both. Oh, okay.
No,
all right.
the Ares
So I guess,
well, you're getting
no one wants
now.
Devastator.
Oh, no. I wouldn't take it for free. Get out of here.
All right. Next up, the Power Gem. This is one
You
of the
cannot
Infinity
handle the
Gems.
power.
Indestructible, equip any unequipped drop.
Real power.
Its effect, modify damage +1. It's 10 points. All the gems are going to be 10 points. It gives close combat expert, range combat expert.
It's insanity.
When this character hits, if the attack roll was 10 or higher, after resolutions, deal a hit target 1 penetrating damage. Who gets this? Who hits hard already that doesn't need to hit harder? That's who gets the Power Gem.
How about Black Adam? He moves for free, and then he can use his RCE or CC.
He's definitely up there for me. Black Adam would be great with this.
You now, if you notice, that means that Namor, when he's equipped with it, does 5 damage. That's penetrating, plus an additional penetrating damage, plus he could have an object.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Insanity.
And that's 80 points.
Yeah, it's insane. Like from an offense perspective, it's completely insane.
It's subtle. I don't know if you catch it, but it's very subtle. I think we all kind of get that this is the beat stick tool, right? There's and you use this in a situation where it's like, I'm not doing enough thousands of damage. Let's make it 1,004 damage.
That's a lot of damage. This is very much. It's funny whenever this feels like the Power Gem. I guess even though it's been out in the market long enough that we can probably use spoilers. I won't spoil anything from Endgame, but there's a great use of the Power Gem in Endgame. This is exactly what I think of when I see it.
Best scene ever.
It was pretty awesome. It reminds me, complete side note, but hey, I'm going to say it anyway. Just after the first Avengers movie came out, I just happened to be playing a local game with Rocky. We lost Rocky a few years back, but it was we were playing a local game just at 401 games at the time, and I was playing a Hulk on my team because I tended to do that a lot, especially in those days. And I was up against him, and he happened to have a Loki on his team. And this was just after the first Avenger just had come out, so there was a moment at which I was able to TK Hulk into place, and then he ran to hit Loki. He missed his shape change, so I got the hit. I did at the time you could do ultra heavy object damage, so I got that, but I also got knockback, which knocked him off a building, and the falling damage wound up KOing him. So the Hulk dealt him something like 9 damage all at once, and we both had an immediate laughter, as I said, a puny god, and we all had a good time.
Anybody else want to add to the very subtle and possibly tricky to use Power Gem?
I don't know. It seems very finessey, very. I don't know, techy.
Only finesse players are gonna be able to use the power gem.
What I like about it is what I kind of do like about it, like all kind of jokes aside, is that I feel like only a fool puts this on their team relying on it. In this world where there's a lot of gems and they're easily stolen, here's one that pretty much almost any piece will benefit from. So if you've got a team that has like a linchpin object and you're not sure what to do with your extra points, but you could maybe have a second or even a third special object on your team, there's very little reason not to put this on, because who doesn't benefit by getting CCE, RCE, and a passive damage boost, even if you don't get the additional stuff from it? So
I want to equip Sam Cap with it.
Oh, very much so.
That's fun.
I just wish you could do it for free, so you could still do the big alpha. You wouldn't have to wait 3 turns to do it.
Yeah, unfortunately,
Yeah, that's why Black Adam came to mind. But
Well, after July, you're only playing Sam Cap and Golden Age. So throw on a split lip, and split lip doesn't work with equip. Never mind.
No.
All right, let's move on because we spent a lot of time on the least subtle one. Let's move on to Thor. Thor's Asgardian, Avengers, Cosmic Deity, and Warrior keywords. He's an uncommon figure, so this is probably the lowest rarity we've talked about since Previews started, I believe. I might be wrong. Bearer of the Time Gem, so for 5 points, you can start him with the Time Gem. Legendary God of Thunder is his trait. Once per game, when Thor hits a single opposing character with a range attack, you may choose to make the damage dealt penetrating. He's 120 points with the Avengers team ability. He is indomitable. He flies with 6 range, 2 targets. What you see is what you get on the dial, Tom. Thor.
Thumbs up for me. I don't think that he's going to break the game, but wow, what an uncommon. Especially if he does come with that time gem. I mean, prob on top of everything else. We'll get to, and also the range bonus helps him. I mean, we'll talk more about the time gem later, but even at 120 points is pretty great. For 125 points, it's a great deal. And I kind of wish the penetrating damage worked with his energy explosion, but you can't have everything, and I don't need everything. He's got a nice deep dial. He's got the invincible up front where you want it. He's indomitable. His values are pretty steady. He feels like Thor to me. He's not going to break the game. I don't think that he's the new meta, but I think that he's very promising.
All right. Mike?
Yeah, he's kind of cool. Definitely, it doesn't hurt having the time gem on there and the benefits that he gets from that. Once per game to do some penetrating damage. You know, you can stack his values at the right time and pull off that move is great. Because your opponent can't negate that particular element with anything. Good length of dial. I do feel like he falls into the problem that a lot of figures like this are, which is it ends up being more of a tentpole team, and he's very outwittable. So, you know, you got to protect him. You got to play him carefully to be able to pull that off. But he's a cool Thor. And like Tom said, the fact that he's only an uncommon it's a lot of power in an uncommon slot. So, interesting figure. Good Thor.
All right. Jay?
Good.
He's a good Thor.
Definitely have to wager that he doesn't come with the time gem, because that's rare color rarity tab on that, or all the gems. So,
Spoiler
highly
alert.
doubt, because he's uncommon. But again, maybe not. Definitely a sealed bomb. Like, enhancement on top of being a good attacker to help your other characters is good. And if you do have the time gem, that's even more support powers, so can't go wrong.
Let's not forget he gets +1 movement, guys. +1 movement.
Avengers team ability is so perfect. They made it so good now.
How did you say those words without barfing? Just to add my own thing, and this is just a compliment to the WizKids design team. Thank you for putting stuff like this in lower rarities. It does make sealed more interesting, and like Secret Wars Battle World was a prime example of how lower rarities still definitely could help you define your pools very well. So, figure like this definitely great for the game when it comes to sealed play, and though it's not necessarily breaking the mold for constructed play, it's not a bad figure for like a kitchen table game, and I kind of like this in the lower slots. All right, next up. Champion of the Universe, Brute, and Cosmic Keywords. He is the bearer of the Power Gem.
Champ is here!
A sense of greater challenge is his trait. At the beginning of the game, if an opponent's force includes an additional game element, heal champion one click past the starting line to click number 0. The additional game elements are ID cards, equipment, special training. So kind of like the collector, the champion. It seems like the Elves of the Universe are going to have this kind of, hey, you got something on the side, I'm going to get a little bit better. And that, of course, if you see it at the end there, the click 0 is where the click 12 slot would be. He's got a movement power, whereas the next challenger, charge. When champion uses it and hits, after resolutions, choose one. Remove an action token from champion, or he may use close combat expert at no cost. Notice he doesn't have it, but he can use it when he does that. But of course, if you give him the power gem, he can use it from there. Mike, what do you think of the champ?
Well, definitely. I mean, sealed, you have to, obviously, it'll depend on what else you pull. But hey, man, he's only 95 points, and he's already a pretty good guy for that, especially with Power Cosmic. Sure, there's like Psychic Blast and stuff to get through that Impervious if you're not that one click up. But at least you're forcing that. And again, he's a good point value for that. Now, looking at him in Constructed, especially with the Power Gem on, Constructed, for sure you're starting on click 0. I mean, come on. The current meta, what are the odds are that your opponent is not going to have one of those 4 things on there?
No, you're always on click 0.
Right? So you're always on click 0. So the nice part is now you've got something that things that ignore damage reducers don't cut through. So he doesn't have to worry about the Psychic Blast or the Exploit weakness anymore. He's not getting outwitted because of his Power Cosmic. He's got the Power Gem on probably if you've built your team, right, and playing him at 100 points. So now he's doing 5 damage. He's going to have Close Combat Expert also on there. So if you're lucky enough, you're already standing next to somebody. But just think about charging with that 11 attack and an object and 5 damage, hit somebody, manage to roll a 10 or higher, do that extra penetrating damage. Now you get to free follow up with Close Combat Expert, which, I don't know, maybe put that a little into attack and a little more onto damage.
It's insane.
You could roll a 10 again then on that free attack and deal another penetrating damage. That's a 100-point character. Sorry, did I say that in a high enough voice? That's a 100-point character. I think I hit puberty.
I can't hit that register with my current state of my voice.
This is the true murder machine.
Plus he has Cosmic, which is already a great keyword in the meta. I'll pair him up with Unseen and cause shenanigans. I'll pair him with Unseen and Mr. Oz for Prob from 12 squares away that sees through everything. And I still have, what do I have? I have 95 more points to build with after that, with those 3 figures on there. So, yeah. And regen there. Let's just give him some regen so maybe he can heal back up again.
That's what he needs. That's definitely what he needs.
Yeah. So, yeah.
All right, Jay?
I was looking at the other... It just so happened that I was looking at the other champion that we had previously, the day before this was previewed, and this guy is inversely good to how bad the last one was, so high marks.
Yeah.
I'm not 100% on competitive just because I feel like, I don't know, by the time you build with him and give him enough support stuff, I feel like you're going to get hit first sort of thing, especially in this environment. And there's a lot of shape change. Doesn't really have a way to deal with that. I'm assuming post-retirement at this point, therefore no Joker's gas, because we're so close to retirement. And you're not playing this at U.S. Nationals. But basically...
Good.
Yeah. I mean, you can make it work if there's a way to give him stealth or something. And, of course, the Brute keyword is so good with him and that one other character that's good that has Brute, so you never know. No, that's never going to happen.
It could come back.
You never know. But, yeah, if you can make it work, I can see some stuff going on here. But I don't want to say immediate, yeah.
Just remember, in Golden Age, there's a Brute with TK. Tom.
He is insanely good. I mean, the only real drawback to him that I see is mobility, just because the fact that you're not really wanting to equip him with anything that's going to give him enhanced mobility, given the fact that you so want to spend 5 points to get that power gem on there. He might be worth considering, at least considering the possibility of playing him without it. I know that it seems like heresy to say, but giving him a beetle pod or something would go an awfully long way, considering that double attack thing is so much damage output. I don't know. I'm not committing to it, but I would say I'd at least think about it, considering the only thing that really holds him back, as I say, is mobility. And as a result, he does sort of lean into the fact that like the presence of pieces like this make me think that winning map is so unbelievably crucial that it's just going to lead to the continuing arms war of initiative. Because if he's not held back by the map, he can wreck pretty much anybody, which is crazy good. And I love him. Jay's right. Like, you're gonna have to deal with rollouts and stuff like that. There's nothing you can really do about that. So as a result, I don't know how many worlds he's gonna win, because it's hard to win like 8 rounds with him, but it's pretty easy to win 1.
Yeah, I like him, and a lot of what I like that they're making the Elders of the Universe really stand out. As like we looked at the Collector and was like, wow, flabbergasted how good he was.
Yeah.
The Champion kind of stands out as flabbergastingly good too. So when you compare to what we've gotten in the past, I'm okay with this current trend.
Yeah, this is better.
Go. High fives to the design. All right, next up, back to the past with the Black Panther. Avengers, Wakanda, Animal Deity, Past, and Warrior keywords. This is another one of the chases from the Caveman Avengers, as they were. He's got ignores elevated and ignores hindering for movement. He's got his first trait, the Panther God. Stealth, opposing lines of fire can't be drawn to Black Panther if he occupies printed hindering terrain, and that is protected pulse wave.
Sick.
Crazy.
That is
That's
super
sick.
hidden. That's so stealthy. Before humans top the food chain is his next trait, Blades, Claws, Fangs. Opposing characters within 3 squares can't use Blades, Claws, Fangs. And then Ancient Incarnation Black Panther. When another friendly character named Black Panther hits after resolutions, remove an action token from this character. He's 85 points with what you see is what you get. Dial. Jay, what do you think of the Black Panther?
I want to say he's the single best thing we've seen in the set so far.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Collector's really good, but Collector's also not like an attacker, or like he does weird stuff. But I just feel like this is single best, character that can attack and do all the stuff you want. Considering defenses are already high, you can't. This is the John Cena. You can't. We have another. You can't see me. Like there's nothing.
This is the real John Cena.
Like you can't stealth bust. Yeah.
This is the original Doctor of Thogonomics.
Yeah, so you can't stealth bust him, you can't pulse wave him, you have to punch him, you can't even giant reach him, because that requires strong line of fire. His being 85 points is really good because you need to maximize the map roll, because if there's no printed hindering, you're going to be very sad. But and 85 points is exactly enough to call in that Con Storm, so they must have planned it, because there were just not any 85-point characters, really, that were even close to competitive, let alone at all. So they obviously planned it. The Hypersonic and Traded Blades don't do anything, but just shutting down Blades in the environment where Wolverine is very common is kind of important. And then when he gets his own charge and his own flurry, it's useful. And if you want to play him in multiples, you can, they can keep on pulling tokens off each other and all that stuff. And he can pretty much call in literally anything you'd ever want, considering we have an 85 point. Like, I don't know what you would want to call in that he can't call in this environment. So, like, you can't call in the 150 point Storm, but who cares? Because she got totally outclassed and replaced. So, he does pretty much. I mean, the damage values, I guess, considering no Blades with Hypersonic, are kind of. But it's whatever, because he's going to never get seen. And, yeah. Incredible piece, and all the keywords.
All right. Tom?
What could I have very little to add. He is awesome. I mean, I think I would clarify Jay's point by saying I feel like the Collector is the most meta-ready piece that we've seen, but I would say that this is the most potent piece that we've seen.
Absolutely.
Certainly. Yeah, power to points. Really crazy good.
Mike?
Yeah. Oh my God. my brain is just all over the place with this figure right now because of all the different ways that you could exploit these things. All the different equipment that you could put on him to make him do stupid stuff. Like, honestly, I would have put the beetle pod on him.
Right.
Because then I've got, what do I got? A +3 to movement. So I've got an 11 movement, hypersonic, 12 attack. I've got toughness, just in case someone just gets next to me to try and poison me. I got a 19 defense with super senses. If I get into hindering, you can't even outwit me. Unseen can't outwit him. Because you can't draw opposing lines of fire to him. So you can't even outwit him with Unseen. Doesn't matter. As long as you get him imprinted hindering. Make a theme team with him. Play him on a freaking animal team, and you could have like a +10 animal team and always win map. Oh, I don't know. Play him on Wakanda. Why wouldn't you play him on Earth X Wakanda, where you get to re-roll that super senses roll 2 times by keeping him in the printed hindering terrain?
Yeah, rumor has it that it's fairly easy to build an Avengers theme team with a few extras.
Right? Like, I mean, this
Is
is
that a thing you can do?
he's absolutely amazing, and at 85 points. I mean, it's that trait. I can't get over the Panther God trait. It's just like what? I want this chase so bad. I might cry tears if I pull this chase because he's just absolutely wow.
I'll trade you for Starbrand.
Yeah. Yeah, you'll give me one for Starbrand. Okay, I'm in. You all heard it. Everybody heard it here on the
We're
air.
trying to be family friendly on this channel. That kind of violence on my channel is unacceptable. that was an online mugging right there, an attempted mugging.
I just want to have one of the many times that Mike and I have had sitting across each other opening sealed packs. I just want us both to open a chase, and one of them to be Starbrand and one of them to be Black Panther.
Yeah.
I'm not even going to say whose is whose.
We already know how that would work out from all the past occurrences. I hate you so much right now. I'm not sitting next to you ever again when we open packs.
As soon as they handed the packs, you just walk across the room.
Yep.
Just as a quick aside for rules' sake, and some of you who might not be 100% familiar, the reason the Panther God trait is so great is not only does it give what is your standard stealth already, it comes with an extra caveat that says, if you ignore hindering for line of fire, I don't care, you still can't see me. It's ridiculous on that level. Just to kind of clarify the explanation, and that's where that John Cena joke came from.
Also, it doesn't account when you're standing on a heavy object. So just be careful, newer players. Printed hindering means printed hindering.
Printed.
Yeah.
And not obscuring either.
And not even obscuring, right?
Right.
That's
Because it's saying printed hindering specifically.
Hindering is a train, so.
I do find it funny that the original Wakandan is the best for the new Wakanda map.
I don't know about that. I was just looking at the actual map. There is a fair amount of hindering, but I just feel like there's other maps that just have way more of it.
But
and
you
just-
also got to think of the added blades and
That's what I'm talking about. Is the location bonus mixed in with the already greatness of having hindering
or
to
if
hide.
your opponent happens to be able to win map against you and picks at Wakanda, then I don't care if you're using blades and planning to re-roll it. You're not using blades against me.
Right.
So it works both ways on that Wakanda map when it comes down to it.
But if you could somehow give blades to Apache Chief, it would still work. There's that.
Said no one ever. All right, moving on in. I'm just trying to find things to talk about because you guys keep killing me on, and I love it because that means with my voice I don't have to spend much time talking. Next up, the time gem because it's on my side. Yes, it is. It's also indestructible, equip any and unequip drop. Modify range +1 is its first effect. Next, probability control. After that, when this character attacks, if the attack roll is 10 or higher, opposing characters can't use effects to reroll attacks this turn. 10 points to give anybody prob for their whole dial.
Yeah.
And +1 range. That extra effect is just like candy. It's just like I had a great, delicious, fantastic meal, and now I got candy. It's so good. I mean, right? I don't know. Anybody want to add?
Well, as Matthew in the chat pointed out, it makes me maybe reconsider going back to Witch Queen again.
Oh yeah, the Discord. Yeah.
Because she'll have a +1 range, she'll have that prob, and hey, I might get lucky and roll a 10, and someone can't prob me again.
That's
Haha.
right. It's like you can't prop me away. Critical hit sticks.
But as someone who's rolled like a 3 12 times in a row, yeah, it doesn't matter. But it's prob is prob.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's all
getting-
there is to. There's all there is to say, right? Like much like the Power Gem, it's like it's a no-brainer.
you know who you want to add it to. A character who really relies on hitting, maybe on a team where you don't have that prob and you need that little bit of extra range. Like it's a pretty straightforward.
I mean, when it comes down to it, if I make a non-theme team for 15 points, I can have 2 probs on my team. Because all I got to do is choose a Tony Stark map, expect to lose map roll. There's a 5-point prob pog, and then I have a time gem on my team to give to somebody else for a full dial. So, this is
You come running back. It's still stuck in my head.
all right. I think
It
that's about
is-
it. Yep, that does
It
it.
is worth noting that the crit hit thing is wrong. You have to you only check for the attack roll when it's finalized. It's not like you roll a crit and that's it. The effect happens after the attack roll is finalized. If you roll a 10, your opponent can prob that attack roll still.
Okay, but if I have the time gem, it says if I roll a 10, effects can't be used to reroll attacks. Oh, this turn. Never mind. If I make a critical hit, ain't nobody really rolling anything after that.
So what you're saying, Jay, is that basically you can, when somebody with the time gem is attacking, you finalize that attack through the course of any probs that may happen.
Yeah.
And if that final attack is 10 or higher, that's it for them rerolling attacks this turn.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if I crit and you have prob, you can still prob it. It's just based on the finalized attack roll. What's the
The
quote?
good news is I can still also prob it.
Now, just obviously this is a pure, like, we ask these pure speculation questions all the time, and the obvious answer is we don't know. But do you think that was what they had in mind, or do you think that this was poorly thought through in its
No, I
wording?
think that's what they had in mind because they very specifically say reroll attacks period this turn, like not reroll this character's attacks or anything like that. It's reroll attacks this turn. So if you can get the guy with the time gem to make that hit, make it stick, doesn't matter how much prob they have on your team, you're good to go for the rest of the game for yourself.
Right.
So, and that I mean that could be something. We already see lots of theme probs,
Yeah.
and teams with prob in addition to theme prob. So, I feel like that's not as much of an accident as my bad reading was an accident.
Some way to team that up with Nico and somehow like lock the attack. Can Nico attack friendly attack rolls?
I think
I don't know,
so.
Mike. You played
Yeah,
Nico the
she
most.
just attacks.
Yeah.
She
Yeah.
does that for any attack.
Yeah, her prob just works like regular prob, and it just says that once she immediately uses it again, it locks out all probs after that.
Huh.
So if a friendly attacks and she probs that roll, and she can then immediately prob it again, and then you're locked out. The flip side though is if she probs the roll and you then get a prob in, and I then wanted to prob after that, well, she can't do her second prob after that. It's not 2 probs. It's a back-to-back prob.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, I want to play it with this Moondragon because she also has a friendly protected prob thing when she rolls a 2. So, oh no, I rolled a 2, and then I rolled a time gem, rolled a 10 or whatever. Like you're never rerolling anything I get to do ever.
You could also possibly increase Trellayne's stock with something like this, right?
I was gonna say like
Okay. His stock is high enough right now. I don't know if you've seen his secondary market pricing right now.
I have, but I can't understand it. I mean, he's perfectly good, but unless everyone in the world has a strategy they're not saying, and it's all the same strategy.
It's got nothing to do with that. It's the fact that the original series bricks didn't sell particularly many. So what ends up happening is there's not that many Trellaynes have been opened, and as a result, the number of Trellaynes is very small, and people are starting to realize now. And there is a figure now that exists that he works in conjunction with, and that's kind of how that all came to be. So it happens in Magic all the time. It's like this card over here was worth $20 this week, and then suddenly it's 120 this week. So what happened? Well, this set came out.
So
And
what's the
something
piece
happened.
now that everyone's so excited about?
The primary one right now is Daredevil, because
Wow.
he can get around the no reroll 6s.
Okay. Well, that's fine, I guess. I mean,
I mean, shirtless Kirk also went up in price too. There's a
I
lot
know.
of weird things.
That's just because of the shirtlessness.
But,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, hold on. Let me just. What do you guys?
No,
What's
no,
wrong? What's wrong?
No,
The price
no.
is going down.
Yeah, exactly.
We're becoming demonetized. I don't know why.
Now we're not on Twitch. All right. That's it for previews this week. So we've covered that. Now we want to move on to our topic of the week. And Tom presented an interesting one this week. So Tom, if you'd like to introduce it.
Sure. This is a very high level sort of a topic, but I'm glad that there's so many of us on the discussion today because it's kind of like me asking a fan question to the Meta Lab. And it really was a very basic thing, which is we talk a lot on the show about, it's the tagline of the show, practice makes your team better. And you got to practice and everything is good about practice and yada, yada. And I agree with it. I think that practice is absolutely a valuable thing. But one of the things that we maybe don't talk about as often as we might is that when we talk about practice, there are habits about how one can practice well. There's a difference between just sitting down and playing your team over and over and really doing meaningful practice. And I think that it's a useful thing to keep in mind that when you want to sit down and the intention is to get practicing with your team, I think that you approach the games a little bit differently. I think you approach the psychology of the way in which you're deploying your team in a little bit of more of a, you're trying to stress test your creation. You're not just trying to win the match. And if all you're trying to do is win the match, then that's probably not the most valuable practice experience you can have, or at least that's what I would posit. And if you disagree, then that's great. I mean, that's what this is here for. It's just to kind of roundtable the question of what are the sort of habits that you put into play if you're trying to practice well. That's the question I would pose to the group, and anyone who wants to start can do so.
Let's start with good habits because we want to actually. No, let's start with the bad habits. What do you guys think is one of the big bad habits? I kind of want to take Tom's thing and kind of go that way. So, what are bad habits you think people have in practice? And then we'll go into what are habits that you should start to adapt, or what are good habits you may already have. And just to start with the bad habits, I think one I've seen and heard about a lot is practicing with small groups and everybody is using their own team and strictly their own teams. Now, it's not that everybody doesn't need to practice their own teams, but at some point somebody's got to bite the bullet, or you got to rotate the person who does bite the bullet and take a day off and say, I am just going to play what other people are playing, and just pull top 8s from big tournaments recently, pick maybe the top 4, top 8 teams, and see which archetypes might be repeating themselves a lot, and then start practicing against those with one of the players. You want one of the players to and this is kind of leads into what you should be doing with this, is you should have somebody kind of doing that. And I see a lot of people tell me, hey, I've been practicing with this, and this is what my buddy's playing. Cool. How does your team work against this, and this? And they're like, well, I don't know. It's like, well, you should practice with that, because that's going to be a thing you're going to run into. And that's something to, like, net decking happens. People go on the internet and see what's working, because the combined genius of the world does exist on the internet, and everybody does put input into those teams. You may look at a team and go, I want to do this differently with that, but for the most part, you've taken the basic fundamentals of it. And that is something that happens you have to be prepared for, and I think you should, as more practice groups as a group, need to actually focus less on everybody practicing their own team all the time and get occasional practice against what to expect. That's like one of the bad habits I have observed in other people telling me how they practice.
I'm agreeable.
Yeah. Mike, what do you think is a bad habit of that some people practice that they should be aware of?
Well, I will say that it's sort of maybe it's a twofold thing, and it connects to a bit of an assumption that you're practicing with your friends and people who clearly want you to win as much as they want to win, if that makes sense. Like when I practice with you guys, obviously I would like to win the tournament we're going into, but I will also be happy when you guys win in the tournament. I want us all to do well. What I would say are the mistakes or the problem would be sort of playing too much the competitive way of like hiding what you're doing, like not revealing things, not talking things out loud, and
Playing your cards close to your chest, basically.
exactly, and sort of mixed in with a oh man, I totally missed the other part of what I was going to say there. Ultimately, like as an example today, when Emily and I are playing, I'm maybe trying to think out what I'm trying to do, and I'm trying to, okay, I don't want her to see this strategy or whatever. I think it's very important that you verbalize and talk out all the things that you're trying to do, not just because you're playing with a friend, and you don't need to trick them. But you talking it out helps them learn how to play their team and how to protect their team. But it also helps you figure out the mechanics of what you're doing. Because a lot of times, like when I was trying to figure out something and I was trying to pull off a cool move and I was doing all the math and counting all the squares, and I eventually did all the actions to do the thing, when I got to like the third action, I realized, oh, wait a minute, I can't do that because of this and this. You know what I mean? And then you've wasted this time. You've wasted the time of your practice. You've made mistakes. It's like, instead of verbalizing it, talking out, okay, well, my intention right now is I want to call out this figure to try to do this to eventually get to this. Well, your opponent, your practice partner, is how you should think of them, not your opponent, will then be able to say, oh, well, actually, if you do this and this, you can better accomplish that. There were a lot of times in our games where what was beneficial to us was being able to say, hey, I know you want to take out this figure and you're thinking of taking an action here, but actually you can get a free action out of this figure here and not have to roll dice and accomplish that goal. And that's why you want to talk it out more. I would say that's, in a roundabout way, the mistake is keeping things close to your chest, and the way to rectify it is to verbalize more when you're playing practice, and think of your opponent not as an opponent, but as your practice partner.
Right.
That's why I say it's a bit of a twofold thing. It's remembering what the purpose is of practice.
All right, Jay?
Now that you've said all that, it's an interesting competitive environment because it's one of the more friendly environments, but at the same time, it's still competitive. So I feel like there's two different sides to the coin of how you practice. You don't want, if you're practicing and you're practicing with your friends in your group or whatever, you probably don't want to be too forgiving of takebacks and whatnot, because that's not always going to be the case. But you also don't want to be too stringent either, because that's not necessarily good for the practice environment or necessarily reflective of the actual competitive environment we have. So I guess my main thing would be, trying to have fun with it. Like, don't be too harsh, because you're trying to practice and get better, but also don't be too lax about it either. You try and maintain the environment of a competitive game, so you can get the full proper experience.
And I think that's also why the talking it out helps to add to that too, because if you're talking out the steps you want to attempt to do, your partner can point out the flaw, can say, oh no, that won't work in that order, and it saves you all of the need for ever taking anything back, right? Because we talk it out ahead of time and we're able to say, well, you're not going to be able to do that. Okay, well, I'm not going to waste the next 5 minutes mapping out all this stuff, or 10 minutes, which is usually my problem, is it's like 10, 15 minutes of Mike trying to map out this crazy elaborate plan that stopped working on like action 2. So I agree with Jay on that. It's good when we can get away from being too lackadaisical, but we don't want to be too harsh.
I think that in a way, maybe that segues nicely into what I was going to say about a bad habit, actually, with respect particularly to how your attitude is towards takesy backsies and stuff like that. What I was going to say as a bad habit is not focusing on what you are trying to learn about your team and get out of the practice session, and instead just focusing on trying to win the moment or win the game. Like, the focus of a practice session to me is not ultimately winning. It's great if you do. It's learning what it is about your team that works or doesn't work and puts you in the best position to be able to win. So it's less about winning and losing. It's more about why you are winning or why you are losing, and what you can do to sort of maximize the one or minimize the other. So in the case of the takesy backsy thing, like if you just make a straight up mistake, like if you just miscount something for your range and you realize you should have perplexed your range, that's the type of thing where I think it's probably you do want to be flexible with it. Yes, in a tournament setting, maybe your opponent's not going to let you do it, but that's not the purpose of practice, in my opinion. However, if you wanted to take back something because you realize that you've left yourself vulnerable in a way that you weren't ready for, that's the type of thing where maybe you need to consider for yourself, am I properly stress testing my team if I want to take back this thing that where I overstretched, or maybe overextending is an important part of how I try to make this team work. And if it fails, I have to be ready to respond when it does. So that's the type of take back that you probably don't want to be asking for. And I think that the nuance there comes from, what are you trying to get out of this practice session? It's not I want to win the game. It's I built this team to try to do this thing. Can it work the way I want it to, or is it going to get gummed up in the works? And you're only going to find that out if you try to commit to the thing that you want to do, and then see how it pans out, even if it seems like maybe it's going to be a bad matching.
And that actually reminds me of the other part of what I was trying to think of, which is taking risks, which is actually, like you're saying, sometimes to even overextend yourself, to be thinking of, well, I could do this, but it could blow up in my face. Well, this is practice. This is exactly the moment that I should try this thing and see how many times does it blow up in my face? How many times does it not? Is it a viable strategy, or is it a pure luck thing? Like if it only works 1 out of 20 times, well, clearly it's a luck thing and I don't want to rely on it. But if it works every other time, well, hey, this might actually be a viable part of it. So yeah, taking risks and pushing your team to the limit to see what works and what doesn't work.
Yeah, those risks is where I start to determine whether a matchup is a 70-30 or a 50-50 or a 60-40, where it's like, okay, if I have to do a specific series of tasks, I have to see what the actual odds of those tasks occurring are, which comes from practice and a little bit of math at home. So yeah, that's definitely a big thing, is take a risk when you're in practice. Take all the risks, all the stupid risks, eventually. It's not immediate. Don't immediately take them all. Play safe at first, but then look at where you might have to be forced to take risks and start taking them from there. So from bad habits we all kind of have and have seen, let's move into kind of the good habits, or the things that we kind of suggest for the team, or for practicing rather. And personally, and this might not work for a lot of people, because I have a live-in person who's finally willing to practice with me again. But we practice in
Your
almost.
daughter?
What's that?
Your daughter?
She's amazing at HeroClix. It's unbelievable. But we kind of use I kind of use the scientific method, where I sit at the hypothesis stage between HC Realms and the first time I'm sitting across from Amber and playing the game. And we haven't even defined what sideline elements or ID cards we're going to use. In fact, what we do is we take our entire stack of ID cards while we're in hypothesis, and we start to go through the motions in a game and see, well, this team could really use this ID card. That gets penciled into the team. And then so on and so forth for a couple of them. Then you start to go from hypothesis to theory, or using the things, and then going back to hypothesis afterwards. So you come up with your idea for your team and what you expect it to do, or what you expect the result to be, and then you try that. And if that ends up blowing up in your face and causing a nasty mess, you go back to the drawing board and take it easy on yourself when this does happen. I am the most notorious for being at my worst in practice. And I'm trying to improve that on myself. I am the hardest on myself, and I am the most rude and the most poor sportsman in my practice sessions. I think Tom has seen me whip things across the room in a practice session once, and
yeah, you beat yourself up, and there's a good habit for you. An asterisk, a side note, good habit.
Yeah.
Don't beat yourself up. That's not what we're there for.
Up too much. Yeah, I have calmed down on myself a lot lately. That's for sure. I'm just sad that I have to go back to completely changing how I play the game of HeroClix. Anyway, that aside, so we go from that to refinement. So once we kind of see how I want to do things, this is where I started doing math and and figuring out tricks, because there will be hard matchups, and these are the games you want to play the most in this stage. Once you've figured out what you want to play, what it does, now it's time to go through all those practice games that you said, this gave me a hard time, this gave me a really hard time, and this gave me a really hard time, and work around those situations and find out what, like Mike was saying, what risks you need to take in those games. Again, all of this is based on the fact that I have a live-in HeroClix player, and if you have a group that you can see on a weekly, daily basis, this works. And but when you see a group on an outing, make sure you don't come with one hypothesis. You come with multiple hypotheses, and multiple theories all in the same line, and then you start to do your math after that. And then from there, it's just the conclusion stage where I keep coming up with ideas and tricks and start visualizing every possible outcome that I can use on my team and make sure I maximize those to the best of my ability. And that's kind of, I think, best practice policy. So, what do you, I don't know, Tom, do you think that's a bad idea? Do you have a different one?
I think it's good. I'll riff on like other sort of good qualities of a good practice session. One of the things I was going to say is, I have approach testing with a sense of balance. Try to avoid jumping to conclusions. Try to avoid throwing out the baby with the bathwater, and try to avoid planting your flag on the hill and then dying on it. By which I mean, this is a kind of a long, elaborate way of saying, any particular transaction that happens in a game, or the way any particular game goes through, even the way any particular session of a series of games goes through, gives you all useful information. It gives you all useful data, but there's a real tendency sometimes to act too quickly. Okay, I built this team, I think it's going to be great. And then you play a test match, it doesn't work out, you lose, and you're like, well, this team's junk. Fuck everything, throw it across the room. Don't do that. But by the same token, if somebody sort of says, yeah, it seems like you had a bit of a hard time there, maybe have you considered not having 25 giant girls? Like maybe 23 would do it and you could use the points elsewhere. No, it's got to be 25 giant girls. I mean, the whole team is 25 giant girls. If it's not 25 giant girls, it's not even a team. Like, don't do that either, right? Because there's the two polarities. There's this team is absolute junk and I don't want to see a single piece on it again. Or there's the only way this team works is if it's exactly this build and this build only, and nothing can be flexible. You have to kind of approach it with a sense of balance. Be willing to try some different things out, and the difference between something working and something not in any given round, in any given game, in any given session, is based on a whole ton of different nuances. What you're up against, who you're up against, how your dice are rolling, how you've deployed this time, how you're feeling, where your mind's at. All these things will affect you. Don't jump to conclusions. Just because you lost 5 games in a row, don't necessarily abandon that team. But think about, why did you lose? This goes back to my previous point. Why do I lose 5 games in a row? Is the team crap? Am I crap today? Did I play the same pairing 5 times in a row and it happens to be a terrible pairing? There are a whole bunch of nuances. Don't jump straight to a conclusion. Take it, process it, think it through, and then trust your instincts the next time you sit down.
And I would say, as an extension on that, it would be really good in your practice session to make note of what your dice rolls are. Mm-hmm. Because if you do lose those 5 in a row, but if you examine your dice rolls and you see that over the course of those games that 85% of your dice rolls were a 5 or less, that isn't necessarily your team not being good.
Yeah,
that's bad dice rolling, because mathematically, if the predominance of your rolls are 5 or less, you're rolling below 40%.
Well, don't be afraid to reset game states. Like if you and your opponent remember it well enough, if you're like, you know what, everything, my whole game relied upon that one shape change. If you hadn't hit that shape change, I would have won. Then first of all, maybe it's not the best thing if your team relies upon your opponent not hitting a shape change and it would lose. But reset it. Say, okay, now let's see what happens if you don't roll the shape change. How would that roll out if we just played on from that point? A lot of times we have a tendency to think that way. We're like, this was the moment. And if it had gone this way, then I would be winning. And if it had gone this way, I would be losing. But I think if you practice and reset your game state and try it, half the time you're going to find you were wrong. You're like,
that's why I'm saying actually take notes of the dice rolls to be able to
Yeah.
look back and go, boy, did I have bad dice? No, actually, my dice rolls were in the ellipses of what they should be, or if they were significantly, like if you were rolling 4 or less on every attack roll or almost every attack roll, then you can re-examine your team and go, okay, it isn't necessarily that my team is bad, it's my dice were bad. So then what do I do to change that? Or is it just hey man, I just have to hope that on the day my dice roll more average? And an extension of that, I'd say a good habit to get into is part of the taking risk and part of dice or whatever is make sure even if you are playing a team that's got a heavy initiative bonus, you should lose map.
Yeah.
You should
Always.
for sure
Lose map at least
for
once,
sure lose map, especially if you've built a team that relies heavily on map. You should play a game where you've lost map.
Yeah.
Like in general, one of the things we do, especially if it's 2 players like Emily and I when we were practicing today, we'll roll for the first game in regular state, and we just automatically say second game, whoever didn't win initiative in the first game gets initiative in the second game. Because you need to see what happens when you don't get first play, when you don't get your home map advantage. You need to see the things that happen when things don't go your way. You know, you can't always rely upon perfect scenario. And as an extension of that as well, I sometimes practice with no crit hits or crit misses.
Mhm.
We just eliminate that both the overall negative and overall overly positive, overly negative aspect of it, because it is somewhat more anomalous. I mean, it does happen in the game, and it is part of the game state, but it is good to try games out where you don't rely upon those roles or aren't affected by those roles to sort of see how a team plays out on a more average scale, as it were, an average dice rollout. It's not necessarily something you have to do. I wouldn't say it's like a top 10 crucial thing to do in practice, but it's not a bad thing to also try out periodically to sort of see how you do in those scenarios.
I agree. I think that in a way, one of the things that you're kind of revolving around there is that ideally, a practice game is not the most extreme, weird, wild, funky, weird, strange game you've ever played. Save those for the tournament.
Mhm.
The purpose of practice is to kind of establish a baseline. So yeah, sometimes games go in all kinds of weird, wild, wacky directions. And if you practice enough, you may eventually get to the point at which you like to be there. But don't start with that. If the first game that you ever play, you sat down and your first 3 attacks were crit hits, reset.
Yeah. Jay, anything you want to add to good things or good habits to keep track of, or good things to do in practice games?
I don't think so. It's hard to contribute when you're last.
Well, I mean, okay. So one thing to approach as well, and I don't think it gets said enough or talked about enough, is the idea of probability. Mathematically, if you want to see probabilities occur in the correct manifestation, as it were, you require 3,000 outcomes, and that is when you see probability occur, and it occurs in its kind of its natural state. So, like, as an example, if you roll 2d6 3,000 times, the number, the percentage of outcomes, it almost magically. I just don't want to explain the weird mathematics of it, but by the time you get to that many numbers, you start to see that, yeah, guess what? 7 or higher occurs like X number of times, right? And I think the number on that is like 56.
54, I think.
Yeah, 54,
50.
56.
Yeah,
Somewhere in there.
I thought it was 58%, but what do I know?
Yeah, I don't have it in front of me, and I don't have it memorized right now. But that you start to see that occur. You can run it in computer simulations and stuff like that. So understand in your small microcosms, when your dice go bad, they're going to go bad, but they're not going to frequently go bad necessarily. And in fact, you kind of want those go bad situations to occur in practice or in games that don't matter, or in that situation. And a lot of people are like, oh, these dice haven't rolled good for me for like 5 months. Guess what? In about 3 more months, a tournament that matters is about to occur. Use those dice. That's magical probability odd, weird stuff like this. I just say you go in the mindset of, if they've been bad up till now, they can only go up from here, right? And that's why I don't frequently change dice. You get in your own mindset of, oh God, these dice are so bad, it's not the dice. It's just this is where out of the 3,000 probabilities you start to see a bad cycle, and bad cycles occur, frequent cycles occur, etc., etc. The dice will work their way out. So
Yeah, it's 58.
don't get too hard on them. Okay, so it's 58. Cool. I knew it was somewhere in those like high above 50, but
I never remember
but
that one.
below 60 sort of
I
situation.
can't believe I was actually right.
Yeah.
Because that happens like 12% of the time.
Well, that's just it. The fun thing about statistics, and anyone who's studied knows this is the funky thing about statistics is that there's two things, right? There's the probability of something happening, and then there is the probability of the probability happening.
Yeah,
Right,
exactly.
because the one is a question of probability within any given any given example, and the other one is a product of the number of samples in the sort of the overall mosaic, and it does get a little bit more complicated figuring out the second one, the probability of probability being followed. But what it really means is that no matter what the probability of the individual dice roll, it's not a terribly high probability that probability will go forward. It's wacky, but
58% doesn't actually mean 58% of
No.
the time
No.
at all. As someone who has literally rolled a 3 12 times consecutively,
But
the numbers don't mean anything.
But that isn't in and of itself, of course, reason for you to build teams that average 10 attack when you could be building teams that average 12 or 13. Because over the course of a game and over the course of a tournament, the probability does add up pretty quickly. Like it standardizes faster than you might think, considering how completely random it is on any given roll.
Well, even if you thought of it this way, if you thought that, so eliminating a crit miss, figure the odds of you rolling a 3 once in a game is probably actually high. So if you can make that not miss, then you've got a great team. That's really the way you want to look at it. A crit miss is automatically a miss. But if you've got a team where a 3 on your dice isn't actually going to miss against, let's say, an 18, you've got a great team. That means you're attacking with like a 15, right? That's a great team. You can do the math that way in your head to sort of know where you're at. You know, the more you can make low dice rolls not misses, the better you are. Don't think about the higher dice rolls. Don't even think about the average dice rolls. Think about, if I can make 3s and 4s not misses, I've got a very effective team.
Now, another observation I want to share, and I'm going to let Jay kind of jump off of this one because he hasn't had much of a chance to kind of add on to it. And this one is for larger groups. And I have had a couple larger group practice sessions. And when you get to 3 people is a good number. 6 people is an amazing number because of this. You actually don't want 100% of the people in these situations playing at all times. When you have a group of 3, I think is perfect. What you do is you have 2 people playing and you have a third party sitting aside, mostly shutting their mouth until you get to a point where one of your players is kind of looking and go, so what do I do in this situation? Now, this person has been observing. And one thing a lot of players will miss is you kind of have the blinders on and you're trying to go your way. And there is going to be a third dimension off to the side here. And you know what my favorite character to sit on the side here is? Devin. I love that kid sitting right here because that kid has 5-dimensional thinking. But at the same time, there's another dimension that you're not seeing because any game of HeroClix, be it casual, competitive, practice, there's a level of nerves, there's a level of error that you're running into that this third person is watching and cringing at.
True.
So in a group of 3, third person aside should be great. And then you rotate that person in and out because that person is going to need practice. The same goes if you have a group of 6. Have 2 games going at once and a third person looking at each one. Or if you have 4 people, maybe 2 people are watching the game. I like to have extra bodies watching while 2 people are active so that you get more brains on it. What do you think of this idea, Jay? Or have you tried this? Or
Yeah, I don't think I heard you mention checking for rules mistakes, which is a big one.
Yeah, of course.
It's a good idea. You know, there's gonna be stuff that both players are gonna miss, especially if you want the game to go the way it should, because most of the time, outside of random luck or whatever being wonky, there should be a one way the game goes essentially, most of the time. So you want to make sure that both players know how the matchup should go, and then maybe after you know that, you can plan around that and maybe even tweak the teams accordingly. So basically, yeah, it's a good idea. Just have somebody on the side, making sure the game goes how it could go and should go, and catching any mistakes that could happen, because mistakes will happen.
Yep.
Oh.
I don't know, Tom. What do you think? You've been part of these groups.
Yeah, I think it's great. I think that a good piece of advice is not only is that a good idea, but be willing to volunteer to be that person. And one of the things that I think maybe sometimes happens with practice is that there's a tendency to either feel like it's all for you, or sometimes it's not for you at all. And I think the perfect attitude to approach practice with is somewhere in between, so that you can easily cycle from being the person on the side to being the person on the board without it being a problem. Because I have seen situations where everyone's like, "You play, no, you play, no, you." I'm gonna, we'll all watch, and then you all just like stare at an empty board. So you don't want to go too far in the one direction or the other. I think it's a good idea, and I think that you should approach a practice session with that in mind. And it's like it helps you also take the blinders off your own perspective, your own team, your own thought. And just focus on the playing of the game of HeroClix. I mean, I am guiltier than most of sticking around to watch games after I get knocked out of a tournament, because I really enjoy watching the way really good players play this game. I think you learn a lot by watching, so you are getting something from it, but it's not all about you either.
And to go on that, like, I'm your next on this, Mike. I just want to add an aside. The hardest part for me is watching other players' games when it's nationals or worlds, because I'm also a board game fanatic, and they always have these things at board game conventions. So it's so hard for me to go like, I want to go shopping, but there's games going. Anyway, Mike.
Yeah, it's good to have another person on the outside, especially for the rules things, because while you're in the game, especially if you're trying to figure stuff out, and as someone who's played this game for 16 years now, it's hard to remember what year it is and what the current rules are and what rule is not what it was before, or maybe came back again in a new way. And like, I don't even know what half the team abilities do anymore. It's like, what? Wait, Avengers isn't a free move action?
Nope.
What? What's happening? Who am I? Where are you people? Hello? Oh, yeah, we were talking about clicks.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, it's good to have somebody around who definitely can, a third person on the outside watching, helping to keep the game state proper, so that, you're not wasting time by making huge mistakes and getting really far past. I know that I'm lucky that Jay checks his messenger pretty regularly, because we were messaging him a bunch today, asking him questions. So it is much easier when that person's sitting right next to you. Yes. And yeah, even to watch how other people are playing and see two other teams match up and come up with ideas yourself on what to do when you move forward. Or maybe you look at another team and go, maybe that figure might work on my team with this build. There's lots of great benefits to having multiple people there. I think also the good number is because then you have a greater chance, again, of having a mixed pool of teams and different play styles, different outcomes. The more variables that you can introduce into your practice, obviously, the better you're going to be overall, because you're going to be more practiced against more possibilities, right? Big tournaments have big turnout of players, which means lots of different team possibilities and permutations. And I think especially going forward, let's just think about all the previews that we've seen. There are so many equipment items coming. I want to say, and I want to be hopeful, that this is a good sign for the overall meta, because it means that there's so many more figures that can be, just with a little 5-10 point tweak, be turned into something way better than what they were. I hope that opens up the market, though I'm still really afraid of a 250 point Black Panther with 2 Mandarin rings, namely the one that gives you Smoke Cloud and free Smoke Cloud and Stealth.
Yeah.
Maybe mixed in with the one that gives you Shape Change and Poison. And then he just becomes the grossest thing for 260 points. But I'm still hopeful. Anyway, so in a very non sequitur, big sequitur, I went on a tangent there. it's good to have a lot of variable in your practicing.
And one thing I just kind of want to add to it is when you have a thought on somebody else's strategy, don't go directly full bore at it. Always ask why they did the thing that they did instead of the thing that you were thinking. So, for example, you say, hey, why did you use running shot here when you could have used hypersonic over here to do the same thing kind of situation? Always ask them that question because three-dimensional thinking is sometimes your third dimension isn't quite on their dimension. So always approach in a why as opposed to a I feel you did that wrong, because that's not helping anybody. Question logic.
Yeah, and asking them why at least puts the seed in their head. That's it. Like it's sometimes asking them why is as good as suggesting it, because it just means it's put the seed in their head for something that they maybe they didn't think about. Maybe they did. Maybe they don't want to like. So we get oddly like neurotic sometimes, and we don't want to be like, "Oh, I never thought of that," or we overdo it. We're like, "I'm an idiot, and I never think of anything." When in reality, it's probably somewhere in between.
That was a really good impression of me.
Yeah.
I think you've hit me with that. It's like, why didn't you do that? Because I'm dumb.
Yeah. Well, and of course you're not, but you know we always miss things. We make so many mistakes playing HeroClix. It's embarrassing. Yeah. If I had a parting, like a last thing to suggest, perhaps, I would say, can we just do a quick roundtable on something to? Why does everybody throw out something that you would suggest maybe you try your next practice session?
I say definitely, if you haven't tried it, try the odd man out. Just so that you have an extra person's idea base to work off of, and to add that third dimension of thinking, because sometimes just having that person there for a couple games will just make you go, there is so much more potential that I'm not seeing, and we'll probably go from a team you're about to give up on to there's more here that I am missing that I should be trying. That's kind of where I would say with that. What about you, Mike?
I would say definitely either bring the team you're most worried about facing off against for your practice partner to use, or bring a team that you think that you might see and play it yourself first against your opponent. So so you can so that you can actually get behind the wheel of a team that you think you're going to face, or a team that you're afraid of, and learn some of the mechanics of it and see how it works, and maybe figure out some ways to take it down. Sometimes, you take down the system from being within the system.
Yeah. All right, Jay?
So what was the exact question?
What is something you would suggest people try at their next practice session?
Probably make sure that you're playing against the what's out there. Look at the winning. It's incredibly easy to find winning lists now, so probably evaluating yourself against those, because net decking is a thing that people do, and it's fine, and there's a reason it happens. So you should be prepared for those things, because people might bring not jank, but like unexpected fringier stuff, and you could probably figure out how to deal with that. But I would say you should be expecting the big lists, which is why they're the big lists. So making sure you know what you're doing against those is probably the single most important thing I would suggest.
And Tom?
My suggestion would be, next time you go to have a practice session, get one of your friends, get one of your compatriots to play your team and play against the team that you have made for yourself. Teach them how to do it, walk them through it a little bit. Like if it's particularly complex, maybe give them some advice or talk at it as you're doing it. But you'll learn a lot about your team when you see it across the field. And it's a thing that I don't think people do very often, especially considering we often play our teams very close to our chest. But you'll see it from a whole different perspective if you've got to try to face it. And maybe in that moment you'll see a flaw that you would never have seen when you were busy focusing on its strengths.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so hopefully that helps all of you guys out there add to your practice sessions. Tom, thank you very much for suggesting the idea. I know I've said it a couple times, like proper practice things, but it can't be stressed enough. Different ideas, and it's always good, like I said, to have these guys with me to help me out. In fact, I think if anything, one more suggestion I would be is, you know, get some guys that you know and come to Mississauga and practice with WJ.
Next time you practice, do it in Mississauga at Jay's house with Jay. Everybody.
Beers at my kitchen table.
You just get a lineup of people coming to Mississauga from all the world over.
That would be awesome. It's just like it's practice session time, guys. All right, I have to cut it off. I've had 38 practice games today, and I have children.
They're all having a barbecue in the back.
Bring propane. I'm low. All right.
Cool.
On that note, if there's nothing else we're gonna talk about, Tom, Mike, Jay.
Let's go.
All right, then onwards. We're going to move into the question. But before we do that, for those of you interested in supporting the channel a little bit yourselves, check us out at patreon.com/marriedwithclicks. Any valuation gives you access to our patron hangout, which come the month of June should be, barring any issues, June 2nd. Sunday, June 2nd. It's always the first Sunday of the month, assuming there's nothing major occurring. If anything changes on that, I'll let you guys know ahead of time. But that's looking pretty safe. That aside, there's bonuses for any number of valuations. In fact, I totally forgot to put in the call-in number, but it's running a little late today, so we're gonna bail on that. And look at that, my Fitbit's out of power. The Tamagotchi and the stupid creature that I'm trying to keep alive is me. That aside, we move into the questions. We're gonna start with the Facebook, and then we're going to move to the Discord. If you're live with us in the chat, put in capital letters like you're shouting at me, question in front of your question, because there's been a little bit of action in the chat, and I kind of want to see where your questions are, and it helps me identify them. The first question we have out in the Facebook comes from Corey Lundy. We've already seen one of the Infinity Gauntlets previewed on ABPI.
Avengers Black Panther and the Illuminati.
Yeah. Avengers Black Panther and Illuminati.
Yeah.
That's just a new set. Just say new set. It looks like there's at least one more in the set. My question is, what are you hoping it'll be able to do? Keep in mind, it is probably also worth 30 points. I feel like it's gonna actively give probability control, and then you can give a free action to give a bonus to stats. And if you roll high enough, you get the stats. If you roll low enough, it damages your face. That's kind of what I think is going to happen. Tom?
I agree. We've seen the one that's about powers. I suspect we'll see one that's about stats, and somewhere in there there'll be power cosmic.
Yeah. Mike?
I think that's probably what it'll do. Oh wait, here. Let me do this.
Have you tried to turn the camera off and on again?
Wait. Okay. I do agree. It's most likely going to be stat related. But the question is what was I hoping it would be able to do? I'm hoping it would have something to do with some free self-healing. Some free regenning, something like that would be super gross and ridiculous. Almost like turning back time with the time gem. So that's what I would hope would be pretty cool on a 30-point character, to be self-regenning without taking actions. But I do think it'll most likely be a stat boost related gauntlet.
Jay?
Probably some sort of power cosmic or protected outwit, because we've already seen the Captain America doesn't have any sort of power cosmic or even willpower, same as the Hood. So we're gonna have to imagine that's where it's coming from, because otherwise Gauntlet wielders in this game are known to have power cosmic, or the old resource gave essentially power cosmic in all but name. So if that didn't happen, I'd be surprised.
All right. Awesome. So next, on Facebook, McConnell Lamar wants to know, who's the best mass murderer in Modern? Hawkeye, Murder Machine, or Vulture Prime? I'm going to say Vulture Prime because he's murdered my dreams. Mike, what do you think?
That's a tough one, man. Like, clearly, if you ask me this question in 2 months, that's an easy one. It's Vulture Prime, because Hawkeye won't be modern anymore.
Fair point.
Man, I don't know, man. I'm gonna go towards Vulture Prime just because he's a little trickier, because if you outwit his movement power but don't actually outwit charge on him, he could still end up with charge by KOing somebody. and he has a slight edge on ease of boosting his damage output because of the super strength that he has there. So I think he slightly edges out Hawkeye. I mean, I can't help but see the benefit of Hawkeye because of the distance, right? You get to keep him back way farther, which sort of keeps him more protected. But, Vulture base 18 defense is pretty sweet as well. So, yeah, I'll give the slight edge to Vulture Prime.
All right, Jay?
I want to say Vulture Prime because I feel like there's more that you can do with build versatility, and Hawkeye feels a lot more easy to deal with because there's, you can only attack characters once, and there's, ways around it. But, if he misses his one attack, that's it. But Vulture has the 2 attacks, and then, if he hits 1, then he's still good to go. So, that's generally good, but obviously Hawkeye having theme is also good. So I probably want to edge it out to Vulture slightly, but it's so close.
All right. And Tom?
I'm going to go with a semantics answer on this one because the question wasn't really who's the better the better team or the more viable option for a big alpha strike. It's just who's the best at murdering folk, and it's got to be Vulture. Even though Murder Machine has it in the name, Vulture specifically triggers his effectiveness off of KOing people, whereas Hawkeye doesn't. So I'm going to go semantics and go with Vulture.
He tastes the murder.
I don't know.
Excited.
I don't know if it's a more viable team. They're really neck and neck as far as team viability goes. I think.
All right. Next up, we move to the Discord. Not much is going on there. All right, cool. I think I already addressed one thing in there, and that covers Golden Age. All right. So I'm sorry, I'm looking in the chat right now. Nobody's putting question in front of their questions.
That's cool. We've answered it all.
Any idea where Canadian Nationals will be held? Nope.
God.
We just know it's going to happen.
Okay, well, no. We do have an idea. It won't be Toronto.
Yeah, well, we all saw what happened the last time it was in Toronto.
Yeah.
It could be Whitby. I believe in Whitby.
Oh, God, wouldn't that be great?
That'd be
Would
amazing.
be great. CBA, fantastic venue, comic book addiction, Whitby. Get a chance to go there. WKO's there are always amazing, always fun. Oh, that would be so great if it was there.
I have honestly, even if it isn't Whitby, I think I'd still want a hotel near there and stay in it just to stay close because it is still a bit of a trek from where I am.
I could just stay at home. That's the beauty of it for me.
Yeah,
Go back
it's close to you, isn't it?
Well, no, I
Wow,
mean my parents. I mean my parents' home. Yeah.
It's only a nice 40 minutes. Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
All right. Next up, Ricky Yell. How do you deal with Lockjaw? ? Flurry. That's one of many options. Most of the time, I just kind of ignore him and kill everything else. But if he's the easiest thing to kill, throw lots of attacks at him. I don't know. What do you think, Jay?
I mean, having token giving effects in your back pocket is always good because there's always that 1 in 6 chance. Like Harley is just a good ID in general, so just having that could be good. You might want Iceman for barrier options anyway, so just keep the running shot in cap version on there. Just in addition to the other ways of just actually killing him, but you probably want to just have your opponent afraid to give him an action token on the 1 in 6 chance that he gets to click 6. So making him useless a sixth of the time seems pretty good to me.
All right. Tom?
I'm vigorously nodding because I agree with Jay. You play the psychological game. Have some way of getting tokens out. Constantly remind your opponent that you have a way of getting tokens out. And then let your opponent not want to commit their lockjaw because of the fact that you're constantly reminding. I joke, but I don't joke because it works better than you might think. You just sort of tap the Iceman every now and again, let them know anytime I want to. I've got incapacitated, so don't overstretch. And they're like, you know what, I'm going to keep my lockjaw back. I'm like, great, go ahead and do that.
Hey, Bobby. How you doing, Bobby? What about you, Mike?
Yeah, pretty much the same stuff. It was actually a funny moment today in one of our practice games. Emily and I both Gesundheit again. Emily and I were both playing Lockjaws, and she ended up on that last click, and I actually picked Incap with my Lockjaw to Incap her Lockjaw. However, both of us, like idiots, mistimed it because Lockjaw actually had 2 tokens on him, not 1 token on him.
That's not good.
So it doesn't work that way. But it was fun at the time. But
You
yeah,
still got a token off.
yeah, you just have to do the same thing. Always have an incap as an option. Flurry does work too. Surprisingly, I got lucky at Canadian Nationals last year and actually had 3 Walking Woods next to a Lockjaw in a game, and I nailed all 6 of the attacks on the 3 flurries and killed the Lockjaw in 1 turn with Walking Wood. So that's the harder way to do it, clearly. But there are ways to do it. But Jay's first comment about really avoiding him, he's really ends up being more of a support piece, right? He's only got a 2 damage. Almost always people are using him to do things like TK or perplex or whatever. So I don't think you, in most cases, have to worry about him as much. So you just sort of avoid him, maybe manipulate the map in such a way that he becomes less helpful. Like he doesn't get somewhere close enough to perplex when he needs to or whatever, right? Like he gets limited by things. So just don't focus on trying to kill him. I mean, it's a lot of work for 75 points. I'm sure there's other stuff that's killable that you're facing on the team.
Flurry is my brute force method. Force method of dealing with him.
Well done. Well said.
Yeah.
No, poorly said, but we understood.
It's brute force, guys. Brute force.
Fuckertash.
God, it's bad enough I got a bad voice today. I also have to deal with a apparent lisp.
Oh, Father.
All right, this one kind of snuck in there. And this comes from Lucian Carter in the chat. How do you best learn the finer points of the rules? A whole lot of that practice stuff. And playing games. Look, so many times I've learned by mistake or yelling at judges. Like, are you serious? Are you kidding me right now?
Well, also, if you really want to learn the fine points, you have to have the nuanced moments come up. You have to have a moment happen in a game where real world things happen. Like, oh, we have this weird occurrence where we've got these 2 intersections of terrain and these 2 characters, and I've got this power which conflicts with this power and this wording. And then you have to read it all out and go through the whole chain to finally figure out, oh, well, because of order of operations and whoever's the first player and you know what I mean? It's the playing of the game and seeing the things interact that only will ever make you get better at the game, right? I mean, you have to see all the variables and all the different ways that things interact to be prepared for it when it actually happens in an event.
Yeah. Also, how can I put this? Because this is something that everyone tells you not to do, but I'm going to tell you to do it anyway. Ask your opponent. I find that 9 times out of 10, your opponent's not going to lie to you to their own benefit, especially not for basic rules interaction. So yeah, if you're worried about it, don't ask your opponent. Go ahead and ask the judge. But for what it's worth, if it's a basic interaction, then just going to clarify it with them or ask them. And if you think you're getting a suspect answer, then check with the judge. I know that that's terrible advice. No one should ever follow it because everyone will just take advantage of you, but I disagree.
No, but to be fair, if
Tom's
you ask your
conversation points
opponent,
do not reflect the opinions of the Married with Clicks channel, given that several times I've said if you and your opponent disagree, you call the judge.
This isn't me saying if you and your opponent disagree. If your opponent disagree, then ask the judge. If you're just wanting to say, you can charge in blades, right? I mean, if anyone says no, that might be like, that seems weird. I'd like to clarify it. But by the same token, it helps you reinforce the things.
They're also cheating in that situation. You're not allowed to lie in this game. You're not allowed to actively lie about how something works. Like if something was non-optional and you're aware of it and you said, oh, no, that's totally optional. And the judge came over and knew you knew and you got caught in it, that's cheating. I mean, I would hope that we don't win this game by somebody saying, hey, I want to use these 2 powers together. Do they work together? Oh, I'm going to tell this guy no when I clearly know that they do.
Right.
That's some sad
But-
sportsmanship
And
right there.
I'm just going to
Almost
point out that you're also relying on your opponent being significantly more experienced than you.
No,
and
I'm just
being
saying about
experienced
the
enough to do that. Like, I'm not going to say an opponent's going to say no on purpose, but what if
No.
you come
That's
across that
I'm.
opponent?
I was only specifically saying in the case of on purpose because of the comment that was made in there, which
Mhm.
was like, "Oh, don't rely upon your opponent to be honest." There's a difference, right? Don't rely upon your opponent to tell you how to play your team. Absolutely not. Like it's up to you to know how to play your team. If you're sitting at the table and you don't know how to play your team, well, you've got bigger problems than whether or not your opponent is being honest with you. Like you're playing a team, you don't know how it works. But if you should be able to say simple things like, do charge and blades work together still? And know that your opponent isn't going to go, no if they do, or yes if they don't. You know what I'm saying? There's an honesty that has to happen. There's not a, I'm going to tell you all the things I can do and all the ways you could stop me. That's different.
I'm just going to say in this situation, it's very easy to also fake that. I don't
Well,
think
sure
they
it
work
is.
together. And then you call the judge over. It's like, no, they work together. What's the matter with you? He's like, oh, I didn't know they worked together.
Well, but again, I covered
understand.
that. I covered that caveat in what I had
And
said.
you have to understand is that the opposing player is the worst person in all situations, coming from like 20 years of Magic.
This isn't Magic. This is a completely different community. I mean, that's the
until
problem
you run
with
across
comparing
the
it to
one
Magic.
player who is a Magic player.
Okay, great. So that's the one player, and every other time you were
and
better off because of it. So
when
he
it
didn't.
comes, when it comes to a rules interaction, and you have a doubt, it should be the judge who you ask.
Absolutely. No, we weren't disputing that.
Yeah,
And I'm just saying, like, your opponent's. I'm not saying your opponent's a bad person, but in general, I don't think the opponent is to be trusted for making your rules call or your rules interaction clarification.
Didn't say that either.
You did. That's exactly
No,
what
no,
Tom
no.
said. Trust
No,
your
I-
opponent. Your opponent
No.
should not be the person you trust in this situation.
No, that's not what I said.
I'm relaying on Tom's point too, and I don't know how you think it's different in this case, but like,
I
if
have
your
more to say on it, but I would like to hear Jay's opinion.
Oh man, proving that something. I mean, if we're going to be talking about the whole lying thing, because that's
No,
what we
get
are.
off of that. Let's go
Yeah,
back to the
let's
original.
We've
start
moved
with
on.
how do you learn the
What was the
rules?
original question?
Final points to the rules.
Yeah.
I guess make sure that you ask questions if you're not sure, if you're in a practice environment, because or if you think your opponent's doing something and you don't know how it works or how if the power combos work, you ask questions. And I would strongly advise
From
against.
the judge.
Yeah, that's the thing. I would also strongly advise against using cheat sheet power compatibility charts because they just are tools that will lead you to not actually know how the stuff works, just that it works. So you want to make sure that you know why certain things combo, why certain things do not, because there's just a lot of intricacies of that sort of thing. Like, when the rules were revamped, there were a lot of combos that were removed, but there still are a fair amount of combos. You just want to make sure that you know how that stuff works, as well as random, I guess just kind of random stuff, like how weird crit misses are in this game now, and with other related effects like flurry crit missing, flurry steal energy, crit missing, all that stuff. So make sure that you're prepared for the weird scenarios within the standard rules, not necessarily with specific characters, but just corner cases within the standard rules themselves, I guess.
I have to say, it's a tricky question.
It is.
Like it sounds so simple. How do you learn the finer points of the rules? But no, there's not an easy answer,
I can
unfortunately.
also guarantee the four of us don't know all the finer points of the rules, and one of us should.
No,
Totally not. You
I
can't-
trust
you
Jay
can't
more
know
than most.
everything.
But
Yeah, oh, absolutely. I do trust Jay more than most. But if I think one of the best ways, and I didn't address this initially because we got into this weird tangent on trusting your opponent, is that tangential learning is a thing. And what I mean by tangential learning is you learned one fact. Now it's time to compare that fact in the rules to another possible fact. So as an example, I can use running shot and range combat expert. Okay, cool. What powers interact with charge in a similar way, because running shot and charge are very similar powers. And you have to follow those chains. And the best way to follow those chains is to make sure you're looking at the pack, make sure you're looking at the rule book. You kind of have to look at these things. So many players in this game just go, I don't rule book. Who needs that? I just trust everybody who's going to teach me how to play the game. And actually, the person who taught you the game is probably the worst person to teach you the game. The rule book will have some of the finer points that because the person who taught you how to the game is going to teach you in the most simple way possible. They're trying to uncomplicate the rules for you so as to introduce you to the game in the first place, and then it's on you to learn the intricacies. And that's where the rule book and the PAC, the powers and abilities card, come in. You have to look at those and understand those next. And then once you come off of those, if you feel there's it's the trail. Rule book, PAC, then you go on the win rules clarifications, because that'll clarify special powers or power interactions. And then from there, the judge, because you're at a tournament and none of these things helped you. Because when it comes down to it, once you've gotten to these points, if you don't have an answer, only the judge has the answer for you at that moment while you wait for the win to figure it out, et cetera, right? So ultimately, learn the rules, read that powers and ability card, understand the powers and abilities card, because the rule explains how to understand this. And then once you get to this, you start getting into the wins, rules, questions for them. And that's the trickle down effect. So 101, the rule book, level 2, the PAC, and then double check your interactions between the two, and then get to the win. It doesn't work like in programming where you study backwards and everything kind of is like, oh, you're back to Hello World, whatever. You got to go in order on this one. And I think that trail is so frequently unfollowed. And it's so many people just go PAC, the powers and abilities card, then the win, and they just forego the rule book. Or they'll read the rule book, read the PAC, and they'll forego the win and then get caught off guard in a tournament. So all three in conjunction will help you learn the finer points. And when I say the win, you also got to look at that comprehensive rule document as well. And all of this is on HeroClix's how to play rules section of their website. So while we've talked about the interactions with people a lot on this, personally, you do have to, if you want to get deep diving in there, you do have to read these documents. And that'll get you deeper and deeper and deeper into recognizing how interactions correctly work.
And just to clarify, running shot and RCE don't work together.
That is correct. Because one is a capital letter power
yes,
that you cannot use during the other one, which allows you a range at no cost.
just saving us some comments.
Yeah. The comment section is a fun place in the internet, right? It's the best place. There's no poison or toxicity in comment sections. Anything else on the exit note, Tom?
No, we turned it to be a pretty great episode. Nice to have a full house.
All right. Mike?
I concur with Tom Kerr.
Okay, anything you want to say on the way out? Nah. All right, guys. On that note, I want to thank our sponsors over at MajesticCCG.com. Check them out at the /Apex-Insiders. $3 a month gets you access to the great brains of the game of HeroClix. You'll learn all kinds of interesting strategies and ways to play the game from people who have done well playing the game. Players such as Daniel Powell, PJ Bolin, Patrick Iboko himself. They're all great players in the game, and they all have great insights into the game. So check them out, MajesticCCG.com /Apex-Insiders. Your one stop for all things HeroClix. Also check us out at patreon.com/MarriedWithClicks. And remember, guys, as you're getting closer to your local nationals, your regionals, there's a lot of cool stuff going on in the game of HeroClix. We spent a lot of time talking about it, and it's always good to get those teams and get that practice, because practice will make your team better. Have a good night, everybody.